So here I am back again at it. So today I just wanted to kind of just give you an update on how what's been happening with the 750 in the back. So I posted a couple of videos about the 750, and I realized that there was not a whole lot of interest on watching exactly what was happening with this bike. I'm guessing this is an old bike, and there's a lot of information out there about this bike. So I'm guessing nothing new is really happening, but I wanted to give you an idea of what's been happening in the background, as well as make a video about some of the corrections that I've been making on the paint, because the paint is something that is not specific to the 750, it's applicable to any bike. So as you can see, I'm just gonna do an unveil at some point about exactly how the bike is gonna end, but this is the progress so far. So I just wanted to show you the process to get this tank looking like it is without having to paint it. And then this is some of the modifications that I've been working on in the background, just to make it look pretty. So of course, this is a bike, this is my project bike, and potentially it's gonna become my racing bike. So I'm making certain decisions or certain steps that I'm making that are not for a bike that is going to be a competition based on its paint. It's just to make it look pretty and just I guess somewhat presentable. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and walk you through the latest changes.
After sanding and prepping the part, I let them dry, and then I wiped them down with a little bit of alcohol, and I started just putting a coat of primer. Primer is super important just so you can get all those nits and cracks and whatever just filled, and you can get a super smooth surface that you can start working with. Before you start, make sure the parts are reachable and you can get to all the areas that you're intending to paint. Depending on the condition of the part, it's going to be the amount of coats of primer I'm going to use. Normally I do 2 to 3 coats, and that should be enough just to lay down a pretty nice coat of primer that you can start sanding, or at least just getting it ready so that you have something for the paint to stick to. So now that the primer is done and completely dry, just make sure that you follow the instructions on the can. In this case, I'm using spray can, so just follow the instructions. And of course, this is going to vary depending on the conditions when you're painting. At this point, I'm almost at 100 degrees weather, so my drying times are actually more faster than what the actual spray can call for. So right now, I'm just going with like some 220, just removing any areas that I feel that are rough, depending on how the actual spray was like hitting the part. And I'm also looking for that smooth and perfect surface. I'm looking for areas where maybe the primer was like super high build, and you can tell that it's potentially just higher than some of the other spots. So I'm actually looking to make it super smooth and to remove as much as possible without necessarily just removing the benefit of having a primer, where you can actually make the part super smooth as well as providing a surface where the paint can stick to. Now I'm repeating the same process that I just did with the solo cowl, and I'm just doing the same with the tail, and I'm just looking for those areas where the primer did not stick well to the part, and I'm looking just to make it as smooth as possible so that the work that comes after the top coat, it's actually less than because of the good preparation that I have on the first couple of layers. In some cases, after you sand the part, you have to consider or make an assessment on the part and make sure that whether or not another coat of primer is needed, depending on how much material you removed. In this case, this portion was perfect. I mean, the actual foundation that I put with the primer was I was pretty happy with. And then even with when I added or actually removed some of the primer with the sanding paper, I was pretty happy with the end result. So I just went ahead and cleaned the part with alcohol. And now that I'm removing all the excess, and I'm making sure that the actual paper towels or whatever that I'm using that is not leaving any lint on the part, it's clean, I'm ready to paint. All right, so now the part's clean and completely dry, so I'm ready for my top coat. So just I'm going with black, but the first thing you have to realize is I'm expecting for each of the layers just to increase the amount of paint that I'm actually laying down on the part. So for this first one, just go for like maybe 50% coverage. Don't look for more. And then after it's dry and you're ready for your next coat, continue to increase the amount. And maybe on the second one, you can aim for like 80% coverage, and then 90, and then 100, or maybe depending on how the parts reacts to the paint, you can actually go a little bit more heavy on the paint. But you have to always make that assessment when you're painting. All right, so once I'm done with this coat, parts are gonna be completely done, and at this point I'm just gonna let them dry out for overnight, because this is not the final stage. I'm actually gonna be adding some accent colors, so I'm just gonna wait for this to dry so I can start taping and putting masking some areas that I don't want paint to get on. Cool. With some, painter's tape, I cover the areas that I did not want to paint, or at least I wanted to stay black. And then I started to strip some of the paint for the areas that I'm going to be using some accent colors, by just sanding down and providing the new paint, so a more of a rough surface to stick to. So these areas I'm just gonna add a different color and potentially a little bit of a primer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sand them down, and I'll show you in a second how they look. I'm not going for removing the entire coat of paint. I'm actually just more concerned with removing any sheen on the paint, and then just providing a rough surface like I mentioned before. Okay, now that I'm happy with the amount of paint and how the surface looks, I'm actually just cleaning with alcohol again, and making sure that part is completely clean before I go and put my first coat of the new color. All right, so part is now ready for paint. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start laying down the paint. Same thing as before. I'm just gonna go little by little, and every time I'm just gonna go heavier and heavier. So once I finish painting, I put, I want to say maybe like 7 layers of clear on each of the parts, the tail as well as the solo cowl that I'm sanding right now. So I went ahead and let the parts dry for maybe about a day or two. And at this point, I'm just sanding down these parts with water, which is called wet sanding, with 1500 grit sandpaper. What I'm looking for is just to remove the orange peel, which is that texture that looks like the peel of an orange, because of the way the spray actually hits the part. So I'm just going little by little. I'm not trying to remove the clear, I'm just trying to make it smooth. So just don't apply a lot of pressure, just go easy on it, and then just keep applying water just so you don't burn through the clear. Now I'm using Meguiar's cut to cut the part. So you can see there's no more sheen, but there's a lot of plenty of clear on this part. So I'm just gonna start applying some of the wax or the cut from the Meguiar's, and I'm just gonna start applying that. And in this case, I'm just gonna be using a drill just to prove the point that you can do it with. It doesn't have to be like a specialized tool. This is actually the type of tool that you use to clear, to give treatment to your headlights. So I just repurpose it, and I'm just using it for my part. Now you can see the portion that I just polished with my drill versus the left side, which is still pending to be done. This is the tail without being cut. So at this point, this is just how it came out of the can with the 7 layers of clear coat. You can tell, it's pretty shiny, but it's not perfect. So I'm just gonna now go ahead and sand it down and make it perfect. I removed all the sheen and made it smooth again with 1500 grit, and you can tell there's no more shine, and I was just looking for that perfect finish on the part. Next is the tank. I was actually thinking about completely removing the paint on the tank, but I told myself, you know what, let's just try to see if I can make it, come alive again. So I started by removing the stickers. So I had this sticker on the side, and I also had a tank protector that I needed to hit with some, heat gun, and then kind of like to loosen up the glue. And it actually worked out pretty great. And you can tell that it was, pretty old, but still the heat gun did the trick, and I was able to pull it out, no issues, whatsoever. Then I hit it with a little bit of goof off. You can use whatever you have, at home that can help you with that, but I've been using goof off, for quite some time, and it's pretty easy to use. The one thing I was going to mention is if you're going to be using this on paint, just make sure that you are going to be also planning on waxing the part, because it normally just leaves the part not in the best shape. So since I was gonna come and hit it with a wax, so I went ahead and used it to remove the glue for the tank protector, as well as that other monster sticker that I had on the other side of the tank. So with the glue removed, I went ahead and cleaned the tank, and now at this point the tank is ready for cutting and a little bit of buffing. I'm spraying the applicator with water using my fine cut cleaner from Meguiar's again, and I'm just gonna put a couple dots on the applicator. I'm just gonna spread it out at a very low speed. I'm just gonna spread it out throughout the part after I get it bump it a couple times on the part, and then I'm just gonna go a little by little until I get to high speed, and just making sure that I'm staying off those edges for a long time, just because you don't want to burn through the paint. Go on lines and then do a crisscross pattern, just so you can remove swirls by going in from top to bottom, and then going left to right as well. All right, so I'm removing all of the fine cut cleaner that I just used, and I'm super happy to reveal the final results, at least with the cleaner, so I know that I can bring this back to life. Now I'm just gonna continue to repeat the same process again, over and over again, until I completely clean and remove all the swirls and different marks that are on the tank as we speak. Now that I'm done with the fine cut cleaner, this is not a paid announcement or product sponsorship from Chemical Guys, but I've been using this product for a while, and it has been working great. So one thing you want to do is just you want to wax it out, so you can add some protection, since the previous one was an actual cleaner. So now I'm just adding protection with some wax, and I'm just applying with a microfiber, and I'm just gonna be removing it with the same microfiber, with the clean side of the microfiber, once the wax is completely dry. Now that all the wax is removed, this is not a perfect tank, and this is my race bike, so I'm not gonna be spending thousands on a paint job. So I'm gonna be using one of these applicators, as very small applicators. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm just grabbing a can of spray, and I'm just gonna spray it on the cap. This is not the cap from the paint that I'm actually gonna be using. I'm using black for this one, of course. And that amount that I just lay down on that cap, I'm just gonna be using to fix those scratches throughout the tank. Once I'm done and dry, I'm gonna go ahead and come back with clear. And the clear is just gonna give me, protection for those new areas that I just added paint to. And I'm just gonna be using the same applicator. I just, cleaned it up, and then I'm just adding that clear for additional protection. This is gonna help me for those areas to stay, fixed for the longest possible time, as well as if in the future I were to clean or buff or wax the area, this is also going to add some protection. I'm just not going to go ahead and be removing all the paint that I just added to those scratches throughout the paint. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Of course, this is applicable to any bike. I'm just doing this on my race bike, if I can call it like that, and just so I can make it look pretty, and then just adding some touches to to make it feel better and make it feel like my project. So if you have any questions, please just leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to help you with any questions you have. Please remember, there's like many ways to do this. I'm just using this way because it's the way I know how to do it, and because a way to tell you it's easy to do. You just need a little bit of a time, elbow grease, and you can get it done and get these amazing results.